don't mess with father, or she will end your free trial of life. And today, I'm gonna show you how to build her best. Let's get into it. Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy is the artifact set for Arleccino, tailor-made for her needs. In fact, similar to Raiden Shogun's emblem set, it's father's signature set. The 2-piece gives a very ordinary 18% attack, but the 4-piece is really interesting. It gives Arleccino up to 54% increased damage that you can obtain in 3 stacks, of which each represent 18%. You gain stacks whenever a bond of life state changes on a character. And of course, of all units, Arleccino is the best abuser of this set and has no issues whatsoever to keep her stacks up. This set is so good on her that it beats her second best option with a substantial diff. Speaking of the number 2 set, the Gladiator 4-piece set is almost as archaic as Zhongli himself, but it is pretty capable on Arleccino, as this vigilante lady is a powerful normal attacker, and this set emphasizes that exactly, giving her a juicy 35% damage bonus to her normal attacks. No questions asked. Anybody who plays Genshin for a longer time has probably a decent set in the mother's basement. Both Gladiator and the number 1 Harmonic Whimsy set can be used in all of Arleccino's playstyles without a second thought, no matter if it's Overload, Vape, or mono teams. This already covers most of the player's needs. To those who want to dedicate all their mortal possessions to father and farm a signature to oblivion, and for everyone else who doesn't want to go that deep, they can just use Gladiator. On top, no matter what you farm, Gladiator is just great for the meantime. Now you wonder, what about Shimenawa, or what about Echoes of an Offering? Both have their own sets of issues. Shimenawa has indeed an even stronger damage bonus with 50% than Gladiator's finally with just 35. It even enhances her charge and plunge attacks, but it will substantially demolish Arleccino's survivability, and it's already tough enough without the energy suckage. That is because her only source of heal is tidally locked to her burst, and if you can't get that back in time, be prepared for a world of chamber resets, pain, and agony. And Echoes is simply not reliable for anybody who has even a tiny smidge of an internet ping. Both sets I do not recommend to put on Arleccino. Besides the top 2 sets, there is a bunch of other sets you can use situationally. For example, the following rank 3 options. It would be Crimson for Vaporized comps. For Mono Pyro, you go 2-piece attack and 2-piece pyro damage, and for Overload, it is 2-piece attack. Arleccino substats are brain dead easy. Attack percent timepiece for Overload, and Mono Pyro EM for Vaporize. Pyro damage for the Goblet, and crit rate or damage helmet, whatever fits the 1:2 ratio. Aim for 75 over 150 without a crit weapon, and 75 over 200 plus with a crit weapon. If you get around 1800 plus attack with a 4-star weapon and 2000 plus with a 5-star one, you are Gucci. Crimson Moon's Semblance is Arleccino's signature weapon. What a surprise! The weapon doesn't just look dope, but also is the uncontested number 1 regardless of team composition, which is not the case for any other weapon of this list. Similar to PJWS, it comes with a shitload of base attack and a smidge of 22% crit rate, which is ideal to balance out Arleccino's stats, as her Ascension stat is crit damage. This weapon is one of those ominous bond of life thingies. It adds an additional bond of life percent to what Arleccino already brings to the table. If you use it on its own with any normal character, you will most of the time only walk away with the light version of its buff, which is only 12% damage bonus. To get the full juicy 24% damage bonus, you need to exceed 30% bond of life. But the weapon gives only 25% by itself. So either you have extra bond of life in your kit or you have other external sources. So therefore, anyone but Arleccino for now might have a harder time to make use of that thing. While Crimson is great for any Arleccino team situation, you can't say the same for rank 2 or below. What I mean is that for every composition, there will be a different best weapon aside from the signature, of course. For Overload, you want PJWS, Scarlet Sands for Vaporize, and Staff of Homeless you want for Monopyro. It doesn't mean these weapons are unusable elsewhere, it's a far shot from that. It just means they are not the most optimal choice. But we are talking here about single-digit % differences, so no need to get sweaty. Another noticeable thing is that Crimson is not that crazy ahead of the competition. We are talking about 5% to 10% difference to rank 2, so you definitely can get away just fine by not owning it. And there's plenty of alternatives to play. The only major upside is that you can equip it and just don't give a damn about team compositions whatsoever. For 4 stars, the best option will be R5 Deathmatch, but if it has to be free to play, the 3-star weapon R5 White Tassel will be your bang for $0 option, as it gives you a whopping 48% normal attack damage bonus. In Overload, the R5 Missive Wind Spear will be of equal strength. I must note here that I have to put some respect on that 3-star White Tassel's name, and that one comes within 75 to 80% of the signature's power level. Not bad, mate, not bad. I can't say the same though for its design, but that is another discussion here. Arleccino has some really powerful teams under her disposal, but the most broken ones are also pretty hard to play. That's because she can't let herself be healed to save her life, unless you use her burst. What a stubborn female. And you know, Genshin has some very hard-hitting motherfuckers who will mercilessly pound her cheeks if you slip up even just once. I will attach tables to each team so you can see how well the team does in the damage department and their respective builds with artifacts based on KQM standard. 5-star characters and weapons will be shown at C0 or R1. 4-star units and weapons will be at C6 or R5. However, don't get bamboozled into thinking that you can't play a team if you don't have a certain weapon or constellation, etc, etc. Just look at it as your end goal. For starters, out of Arleccino's Vape, Overload, and Monopyro teams, Vape is the best to be used with a shielder like Zhongli. This team I will use as a baseline for our damage charts. You have here Arleccino, Yelan, Bennett, and Zhongli. If you don't have Yelan, if you don't have her, you can just use Xingqiu. Zhongli is hands down the best man for the job here, but if you don't have him, use the next best shielder. Thoma, Layla, whatever you got. But note that Thoma will steal some of your waves. Bennett is only half the man he once used to be, as in this team his heals will be mostly useless. However, his attack buff is still stellar and is greatly appreciated. By the way, the Italian stallion and wise brother in Gacha, TGS, mentioned in his community post how this whole no-heal ordeal is again just another instance of Hoyoverse introducing a problem only to sell the solution down the line with Murata, the Pyro Archon. They did the reverse with Furina in order to make healers great again. Furina is a problem and the healers are the solution. The difference though to straight up power creep is that it's fun. Anyways, Arleccino's vape team with Zhongli ain't the strongest as it resides last. But even that team deals more than 80k DPS or 1.65 million damage per rotation, which is plenty to carry your heart-stuck ass through the bottomless pits of Spiral Abyss. And on top, it's very safe and easy to play compared to all her other options. The only caveat is that the energy budget is tight for Arleccino in this team. But let's look at this team in action before I break it down one by one. So you want to start your rotation with EQE in order to generate enough energy for her. EQE means skill into burst into skill. For the rest of your combo, you swap to Zhongli, pop his burst if you want to, and then his shield. Then go to Yelan, do her EQ combo, drop Bennett burst, and then go right away into Arleccino and let her do her love tap with a charge attack to start her Ultra Instinct mode. And then you do 4 sets of 4 normal attacks. Every time you reach the 4th hit, you cancel with a dash and do the next set. This is the optimal playstyle. However, if you have more than 200 ER on Bennett, if you don't get his burst back after Arleccino is done with her stuff, just swap to him to do his skill and then do the next rotation. If you cannot be bothered with dash cancels, just spam her fucking normals until you run out of fuel, you uncultured buffoon. Okay, let's jump from bottom feeder team straight to the top. It's Overload with Yai Miko, Fisher and Chevreuse. This behemoth of a team will deal almost 100k damage per second and 2.8 million damage over a span of an eternal 30-second team rotation. While the sheet numbers are very impressive, you will juggle and struggle a lot, having to deal an iframe like a pro on Arleccino and having to deal with Yai Miko and Fisher's automated defense cannons and their pesky cooldowns. As you can imagine, Arleccino's long damage window doesn't fit into Yai's and Fisher's uptimes. So, what you need to do is to split Arleccino's damage window into 2 so that you can refresh your cannons. Let's look at it in action. Now let's break down that long ass rotation. You start with Arleccino's skill and drop all of Miko's cannons. Swap to Chevreuse and do her burst into skill. Then throw Fisher's burp on the field and then swap back to Arleccino to do her love tap with her charge attack. Then you do 2 sets of 4 normal attacks plus dash cancel. Or, if you are a lazy fuck, just spam normals until Miko's and Fisher's cannons are about to run out. You heal your Arleccino with a burst and then activate her skill again. But that's not all. Now we come to part 2. You swap to Miko, drop the burst, followed by another set of defense cannons, Chevreuse skill, Fisher burst, and then back to Arleccino, doing her charge attack into 4 sets of normal attacks plus dash cancel. Sounds like an overly complicated fitness routine, and in fact it is one. It will break your knuckles, but respect if you want to deal with all of that smoke while not getting smacked in your face. Have fun and good luck. The next team is a variation of Vape with Zhongli. Only that you drop Zhongli for Kazuha. Means more damage, but it's also of course more risky to play. Just make sure to use Kazuha Hold E instead of his regular one, so you can swirl both Pyro and Hydro. To make things a little shorter, I'm just gonna drop the combo down below and show you the team footage. The next team is another overload team. You keep Fisher but kick out Yai Miko. So it's way less pain in the ass to play and you still dish out very respectable damage. I talk about 88k DPS and almost 1.8 million damage per rotation. Bennett and Chevreuse will buff Arleccino and Fisher to the stratosphere, to space, you know. Just note that Fisher does a charge attack early on so Chevreuse can buff her properly. That has the reason that you can drop now Fisher's burp later for more uptime during Arleccino's damage phase, you know, so she can pick up her particles. The gameplay and combo looks now as following. Monopyro does exist. You can pair Arleccino with Xiangling, Bennett and Kazuha. The major advantage is that it is easy on Arleccino's energy demands and has also great AoE coverage. But that's about it. It has the same power than the Vape team with Zhongli, but now you have no shield. So while you can play it, why the fuck bother? It's way harder with no extra benefits. Unless you're one of those guys who enjoys the pain. Well, yeah, anyways, here's the combo. Alright, let's focus now on Papakino's talents. I'm gonna break them down one by one and then piece it all together how to play her. Arleccino takes the no heal stuff from Bond of Life to the utmost limit with that A0 passive of hers, completely negating any heals from external sources. Doesn't even matter if you bring Kokomi or use Prototype Amber or whatever. The only thing that can heal Arleccino's pain is Arleccino. And with most of her teams, you better know how to dodge, or she's the one getting her free trial of life expired. In return for that backhanded debuff, you get a small donation of 40% pyro damage bonus. Reminds me of Kokomi's flawless strategy that sounds like everything but flawless when you read it at first glance, but you know, let's be real, in both cases these units have turned out more than just fine. You just need to adjust to their antics. The normals for once are not decoration, they are core to Arleccino's kit. You have here a fast-paced 6-hit combo with some nice Grim Reaper Scythe animations. She comes with a gimmick to her charge attacks where you can enter a high-speed mode when you keep that button pushed. Literally cosplaying as my man Sephiroth with her one wing. It's nice for traversal, but nothing you use in combat. What's important here is her pyro self-infusion called Mask of the Red Death. Whenever she obtains Bond of Life, that is 30% or greater, she will enter her very own Ultra Instinct mode. You can see Bond of Life being active with a red border that envelops her HP bar. With that, you gain an additional fat bonus attack multiplier that drastically enhances her normal attacks, and only those. No plunges or charge attacks. You see now that no heals are uncomfy, but you get a nuclear crap ton of power in exchange. Aside from that, you can switch to other units and back without losing her Ultra Instinct mode. This is very important as you want to use her team's skills and burst to power her up and farm energy. But how do you activate that state? That's simple. Once you use her skill, you only need to do a charged attack and boom, you're ready to stomp the floor. However, you cannot just ball forever in that Ultra Instinct form. Whenever you whoop asses with her normals in this state, her Bond of Life gets reduced. You can easily track that by looking at the red bar on top of your HP going lower and lower. Once she drops below 30%, she automatically exits the state. The reduction is 7.5% every time. But it's not flat, like 145% minus 7.5%. No, it reduces 7.5% of the remaining Bond on Life. So unless your HDHD brain comes with a built-in calculator, you can't just compute how many hits she does with a given BOL percent in your head. Just note that you can get a lot more juice out of her than it might seem. Besides that, whenever you hit, you also reduce the cooldown of the skill by 0.8 seconds. Let's talk about skill. Alice Ash drops a bit of pyro AoE damage to nearby enemies, and on the top, Arleccino zooms up close and personal towards one of them for an additional clappage that also deals AoE damage. The enemies you just clapped got no auto mark on them, which is called Blood Depth Directive. That BDD lasts almost forever with 30 seconds, and the cooldown has the same length. Plenty of time for her and her team to do their thing. Blood Directive will do 2 ticks of damage per enemy even if Arleccino wouldn't move an inch after casting her skill, with 1 tick per 5 seconds. And as mentioned before, the charge attack after skill is necessary to activate her Ultra Instinct mode. What exactly goes down here is that the charge attack will clear BDD marks on those enemies, with each clear giving 65% Bond of Life. And remember, once you are above 30%, you ball. At max, Arleccino can have 145% BOL no matter what. So against multiple enemies, she gets that right away without issues. And if you face only a single boss, you can still get max BOL with the help of her A1 passive. That one gets you a whopping 130 BOL by itself. But you need to defeat an enemy that she put the X mark on. Wait a minute, wouldn't that be pretty useless if you face a boss? Not very cash money. Well, luckily the devs at Hoyoverse have some mercy on your soul. If you can't beat the shit out of your foe right away and send them straight to the Shadow Realm, so all you need to do is mark the boss with your skill and you have your max Bond of Life after 5 seconds. You will see the passive is ready once the small X on your enemy turns into a big one. Doesn't even matter if you cycle first through your team and then do the charge attack to collect the blood depth. And once you have done that, you will see her whole HP bar with a red border. This is your fuel gauge. And this was already the quote-unquote worst case with a single chunky boss. In AoE, you pretty much always have her stuff ready right away, and with 30 seconds uptime, you have an eternity to time and do your thing. Great how buttery smooth everything comes together on Arleccino. Now, we only need to torque the burst to complete this murderous woman. It's the only thing in the entire universe that can heal her ass. It deals a slop of AoE damage and converts all of her remaining bond of life plus 150% of her attack into that heal that she will desperately crave for after battle. On top, the burst will reset the cooldown on her skill, which is crucial for certain wave combos. With this puzzle piece in place, we can see now how to play her. You use her skill and charge attack to activate her Ultra Instinct mode. Rotate through her team and then fight until your BOL stamina runs out, or you face an emergency and you are about to enter the afterlife. In either case, you use the burst to finish her combo. Rinse and repeat. Actually, brain dead, simple and intuitive. However, note that the longer you stay in combat, the less BOD will be left to be converted into HP. And if you use it too early, you just won't deal any damage. By the way, you can use the burst to clear blood depth marks from her skill right away, but that basically lets her skip her entire damage window unless you use her skill again right after the burst. That has a specific purpose in some situations. You can make use of that in teams that have notorious energy issues for Arleccino, like vape teams. You do EQE, so again, you simply do skill first right halfway into her burst and then press skill again. That allows Arleccino to farm pretty much twice as much energy. From here on, you do the same thing as usual. Rotate through your team and then start smacking the shit out of your foes until your fuel runs out. At the end, you do another EQE to start the next rotation. Unless all enemies are already dead. In that case, if you play Spiral Abyss, you save that EQE for the next stage. The A4 of hers is a little bonus that comes very handy for her survival. She low-key needs it. For every 100 attacks she has above 1000, she gets 1% resistances against all types, up to 20%. Really neato. Now let's talk Constellations. Out of these, Arleccino C1 and C6 will give you the biggest power spikes. So it's basically C1 or all the way with her. The C1 will give you a bigger power spike than her weapon. It is a whopping 20 to 30% more damage with the C1 compared to the weapon, who only gives you a 10% increase from base C0. So in this regard, you go for her C1 first and then for her weapon, before you decide to go down further the Constellation route. What the C1 does is give a full 100% more attack scaling to her Ultra Instinct mode that buffs her normal attacks. So it's clear now why this Constellation is so strong. On top, you get also more interruption resistance, which surely comes handy in shieldless teams. As mentioned, a 20 to 30% damage increase from C0. His C2 will now allow her to max out her bond of life right away, even on single target, as you don't need to wait 5 seconds anymore to get the full benefit out of her A1 passive. On top, you get also a big AoE, big PP nuke with 900% attack scaling every 10 seconds, plus additional resistance of 20% against everything. A 10% increase for Overload and Pyro Mono teams, and a 21% for Vaporize from her previous Constellation. Her C3 raises her normal attacks by 3 levels, a 11% increase in damage from C2. The C4 will reduce the burst's cooldown by 2 seconds every time she absorbs a BDD mark from enemies. Furthermore, she gets 15 energy restored, a 0 to 8% increase in damage for Overload and Mono teams, and 8% for Vaporize from her previous con. The C5 increases her burst leveled by 3, which is a 0.5% to 1% increase in damage. C6 is now a big one. As expected of a C6, her burst damage multipliers will be increased by 700% of the current Bond of Life percentage. So if you have 100% Bond of Life, it would result into a 700% additional attack multiplier for your burst. But it also means the later you use the burst, the less the multiplier will be. But that isn't always the goodies. On top, for using her skill, she gets 10% crit rate and 70% crit damage. A whopping 30 to 36% increase of her damage from her previous constellation. And that assuming you do this with a B-weight of 30%. As a hyper carry, she definitely claimed one of the top spots in Genshin for her damage. She is all about high risk, high reward. And the better you are at the game, the more you can utilize her to her peak potential. But even if you can't iframe and dodge everything, you can still have good value out of her in vape comps that use a shielder. So if you are into daddy issues, she's all you will ever need. This has been Neostar Impact. Peace.